Are we live? We are live. Happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How are y'all doing? How is everyone's week going? I am super excited to hang with you. I think today's conversation will be fun, and I would love, as you're watching now or if you're watching on the replay, let me know if you have questions about this, if this brings up other thoughts, because this thing is always popping up messages. I think it's always nice for us to have a conversation around this. If you have questions, throw them at me. I'm sure if you've been hanging out in this group, you know I like to be a resource to you, and I love when I get to answer your questions. So feel free to throw those at me while we are chatting about this. Before I forget, because sometimes I forget at the end, we have a free training coming up this month, and I will make sure I drop a link called Question All the Rules for Making Money, so that you can make money your way, so you can make bank your way. I don't even remember what I called the end of it, but we're going to talk all about some tools I want to give you around questioning the rules in business, around the BS you've been fed online, because there's a whole lot of it, let's be real, that doesn't always work, so that you can really start to write your own rules in business for making money, for business success. I'm really excited about this topic. I feel very strongly about this topic, so I will be sure to drop links for that so that you can join me. That will be in 2 weeks. These free trainings are always really good. And as a really fun bonus, because I get to make my own rules in business, if you sign up for the training, everyone who signs up will be entered to win a free coaching session with me. I'm fully booked. I don't offer single coaching sessions anymore, full coaching sessions. So this is the only way you can get one. I'm going to give away one. And if you show up live for the training, you will get a second entry. I will announce the winner the day after the training. So that's the fun bonus. All right, let's see here what we were talking about today. I'm just making sure this is actually on Facebook, because I'm getting really weird notifications, y'all. So bear with me. I think okay, we are on Facebook properly. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today are 3 shifts you can make, 3 ways you can shift out of that employee thinking, that employee mindset, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, into the role of CEO. This is something I find is really important at every stage of business. If you're just starting business, this is something you really want to start thinking about, because most people are coming from a corporate world, a 9-to-5 world, working for someone else, and there's a very different mindset, a type of thinking, being an employee, which is really important, it serves you as an employee, than being a business owner, being a CEO. And this is also very important for my business owners who are further along in business, who are starting to scale their business. This is something I'm talking with clients about quite a lot as they're getting into those higher figure income months and they're starting to scale. These are some of the things we're really working on shifting, because the longer you're in that employee mindset, again, nothing wrong with being an employee. I'm not hating on being an employee. I've been an employee before. We're not hating on being an employee, but when you're running your own business, you're no longer an employee. You are a CEO, you're a business owner, and there's a very different mindset that's required. And it's kind of the opposite of being an employee. And it sounds like it would just be like so easy to shift out of it. But what we forget is that most of the world is set up for that employee mindset, which means society, you know, as we're in grade school, as we're in high school, as we have our first jobs, we're being taught to be employees. The way we are taught to think is to think like an employee, to show up like a good employee so that you can get that paycheck, so you can get that raise, right? Let me know if you have experienced that, if you know what I'm talking about. So this is, for many of us, the employee mindset is something that has been ingrained for decades and decades. So that when you go to start your own business, it's a very different mindset to shift out of. And if you're not aware of this and you're not starting to shift out of that employee mindset into that CEO mindset, it can really start to sabotage your business growth at the start, and especially as you're going into scaling. Let me know if this is making sense. Let me know if you have questions as we're chatting through this. What I have noticed, and something that I find fascinating, many of you who've been hanging out with me, you know this, I spent 10 years acting before, in LA acting, before I started my own business. I had a really short stint working in advertising, but really for most of my life, I haven't been an employee. I mean, I worked at a bar gig to kind of pay the bills while I was acting. But as an actress, you're essentially the CEO of a very small business. You're running your own business if it's making money. So for me, I've been very lucky in that way, that a lot of the CEO thinking, that boss level thinking, the way to run a business is something that I was doing for a decade as acting. So much so that when I moved to New York City and I was like, sure, I wanted to work in advertising, I busted my butt to get that job. It was really confronting and jarring to me because I was so not used to showing up as an employee. I was used to showing up and running things essentially as a business. It was quite challenging for me. But I find, again, for most people, the reverse is true. And there's no wrong or right. It's just wherever you're coming from. But if you've worked in corporate for 10 years, or if you've always worked for someone else, these are some things you're going to want to start to notice and start to shift. So the first one is so big. I think I probably talk with this with almost every client at some point. And that is starting to shift out of that permission seeking, validation seeking mindset and into the role of starting to give yourself permission and yourself validation, and realizing that that really an employee is someone who seeks permission, a CEO is someone who gives permission. Let me know if that makes sense. I'm going to break this down a little bit, but this one is so incredibly common. And I think if you have any sort of imposter syndrome, or if you feel not good enough, or any of the mindset around enoughness, or if you don't trust yourself in business yet, and those are really essential mindsets in business, right? That self-trust, that feeling good enough, that feeling like you know what you're doing. If you're feeling a little wobbly on those mindsets, it's really common to lean into this permission seeking, this want for other people to give you permission and to tell you it's okay, to kind of give you that like stamp of approval for what you want to do. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about, if you've ever been in those shoes. I see this clients all the time. It's kind of like they want me to give them permission, and a lot of the times the work we'll do together that I'm lovingly pushing back on them is, trying to help them step into that role of CEO and give themselves permission versus seeking it from me, because I'm not the boss of their business. They're the boss of their business. I think I've shared this story before, but many of you probably have not heard it. A few years ago, I went to a women's conference when we could still go to things in person, and back before lockdown. I went to this women's conference, and it was a really powerful conference. There were a lot of women who were very successful business owners, very smart women. And you had different points during the conference. There were opportunities, to raise your hand and to ask questions. And the woman who was running it, you could ask her some questions, get her expertise. And something I found really fascinating was starting to see the different type of questions being asked. And there were some people who would absolutely ask a question because it was a true question. And there were some people who were asking things masked as a question, but what they were really doing was asking for permission. And these were smart, successful women who were essentially giving away their power, stepping out of that role of CEO, asking for validation and permission from someone else. And this is me, I'm not calling anyone out. This is said with love. I think this is a very, very, very common thing. If we look at how society has raised most of us, if we think about school, right? You have to ask for permission to do pretty much anything. You have to go pee, you have to ask for permission. If you think about being an employee, when you get a job, so often anything you want to do, you literally have to ask for permission to take days off at most jobs. There is so much of our world that is set up around asking for permission to be safe, to get approval for what you want to do. And then my high achievers, those of you who get some of your sense of worth from the gold star, from doing great work, I think there's also a little bit of that validation you can receive when you're asking for permission. So especially if you're feeling a little insecure, it's like, if I can just ask someone for permission, that's sort of like, I'm going to feel safe and I'm going to get that gold star on top of it. Let me know if this is making sense. So it's all very, very normal. We can see why the brain wants to do this. Permission seeking can feel really cozy and safe. However, think about how this affects your business. First and foremost, if you're constantly seeking permission, if you're asking other people for permission all the time, like plainly, just practically, it slows you down in business. Every time you have to stop and ask someone else for permission, that slows down your process. But more importantly, every time you're asking for permission, you're starting to erode that self-trust that is so essential as a business owner. You're giving away your power as a business owner, as a CEO, to other people. And I think those are the pieces, like, yes, this is not efficient if you're constantly asking for permission. I think this is something that, quite honestly, this piece right here, this mindset, that asking permission, this is something I see keep people stuck for moving forward for months, if not years, because they are looking for someone to give them permission on their idea. I can't tell you how often I talk to someone who they know exactly what the F they want to do. They just need that permission to do it. So if that's you, I love you, I'm giving you permission. Go do that thing. Stop looking for permission. Said with so much love, not calling anyone out, said with love. But we can see how this will keep you stuck. This will keep your business stuck. This will keep you immobile. And the longer you're waiting for that permission and that validation, the more, again, you're breaking down that self-trust that is so crucial as a business owner if you want to be able to grow, scale, build something that is really profitable and sustainable. Y'all are so quiet. Let me know if this is resonating, if you have any questions. I'm gonna see if I had anything else I wanted to say around this. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I think this is something that just helps it land. I'm sure you've all heard this adage before, to ask for forgiveness, not permission. And that's really the mindset of a CEO versus the mindset of an employee. An employee asks for permission because they don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to get fired. You don't want to lose your job. You want to make sure you're doing things right. You want to get that raise. A CEO is a thought leader. A CEO is someone who is creating something out of nothing. An entrepreneur is creating something out of nothing. So you are seeking forgiveness, not permission, which is take action on that damn thing, on that idea, and don't wait for permission, and allow, if you need to, you can always ask for forgiveness, is the idea of that concept. That makes sense, y'all? You all are so quiet. Let me know if you have questions. Okay, so the next one here, this one's really important. This is going to affect you differently at different stages of business, but I think the general concept is important whether you're starting out and you haven't booked a single paying client yet, or if you're scaling to 6 figures and above. And it's really starting to look at and prioritize higher level thinking, money generating activities, and leaning into delegating the busy work and the tasks that you specifically don't need to do. So crucial and important. And this is the reverse of an employee mindset. So what I mean by this is, if you think about the role of a CEO, your job as a CEO is you're steering the ship, so to say. You are driving the car. You're, I don't know, whatever else you drive. You're moving things forward. So what is essential for you is you need to be able to do the higher level thinking. You need to be able to see the bigger picture. You need to be able to focus on the things that only you can do. Versus if you're an employee, your job is to execute and to fulfill the role of someone else's vision. And can you see the difference there? So what is really common in business, and where a lot of people get stuck and trapped up, is they get so into the day-to-day tasks of business, of, being in their business, of doing all the busy work, especially for my people who have that story that hard work equals money, hard work equals success, hard work equals gold star, hard work equals you get a whole bunch of approval or sympathy, which is almost its whole other conversation, but I think it gets baked into this. And especially for those of you, hey, when I started my business, I did everything myself. I think that's normal and honestly smart. I don't agree with delegating and hiring stuff out at the very start of business. That's a whole different conversation. Maybe we'll do a conversation on hiring a team, and when it's time to hire a team, let me know if you guys want to talk about that. But what we're really talking about is starting to get clear on what are the tasks only I can do as a CEO. What is that? Am I making time for that higher level thinking? Am I keeping and making time for that bigger picture vision? Am I taking time to really do the task? And am I clear on what are the things only I can do? And am I clear on what are the tasks that need to be done in my business, but that at a certain point do not need to be done by me? And am I ready and willing to hire those out when the time is right? Because that is a crucial role, and as a CEO, and the difference between CEO thinking and employee thinking. Let me read. Courtney says, great analogy with the CEO versus employee seeking permission and asking for forgiveness. I'm so happy that resonated. Thank you, Courtney. Y'all heard me talk about that, so I won't piggyback on that, but I'm so glad that landed. So when we're talking about this higher level thinking, which I know we've talked in here before about, but when we're talking about this differentiation, this is something, when you're at getting to that stage where you're ready to hire support, I find this is very challenging. If you're still in the employee mindset, there's a lot of resistance that can come up around asking for support, receiving support, kind of around this idea of like, well, but I can do this thing. Why would I have someone else create a graphic for me when I can do it perfectly well? Or why would I have someone else schedule something for me when I can do it perfectly well? Why would I pay someone? Why would I invest in support? There are all these different things that can come up where it's sort of like, but I can do that. It's sort of the employee mindset, sort of like, but I can do that. Because if you think about, if you've ever been an employee, that's actually your job. Your job is to, if someone hands you a task, to do it, to execute on those things for someone else. But I think what we don't spend a lot of time thinking about is, why is that your job as an employee? Your job as an employee, the reason you get hired as an employee, is to do the things that, it's not like anyone else can do those roles, because there are some very high level employee roles, but your job is to do the tasks, to free up space and time to help a business run, so that the people who are running the business have space and time not to worry about all those tasks and can focus on the higher level thinking, the things that steer the boat, that steer the car. And starting to see this is really important, and just even being able to identify, what are those CEO level tasks? What are those things that only I can do? And what are those more employee tasks? And again, it is fine at the start of your business if you're both the employee and the CEO. I think that's smart business. However, you need to know what is that actual difference, because otherwise you'll find, especially when you've got some free time, it's really easy to get wrapped around the employee work and to just tinker doing employee work, instead of shifting into, what is that CEO level work I need to do? And then again, when it's time to delegate and to hire out, there can be a lot of resistance that comes up around having someone else do some of those tasks for you. And at a certain point in business, it starts to cost your business money if you are focused on all the employee tasks and you're not creating space and time for those CEO level tasks. Tiffany says, I can't wait to be in a position to hire out, especially my social media. It's coming. It's so coming. And I think it's so nice that you're already thinking that you can't wait to be in a position to hire out, and that you know what you want to hire out. That is that CEO level thinking. And just to kind of what we were speaking about here, I think just to give some grace around being at this place and doing some of these things first, I do think, and this is a whole different conversation, but I do think the best way to be a leader and to have a team, and to have a team that can really support you, is to have first done some of those tasks yourself and to have some understanding of them. I think it makes it so much easier to delegate them out. When you've never done anything yourself, I've seen this happen. And I think this is not CEO level thinking either. It's really starting to know, where does it make sense for me to invest my money and time? I've seen in our online space quite a lot. There's a lot of talk about like team, which I'm all about. I have a team. I love my team. Thank you, team, if you're watching. There's a lot of talk about team. And sometimes I see with business owners who are just starting out, they spend a lot of money on team. And so they have this big team, and they don't know how to have their team support them. They don't even know how to delegate. They don't have systems and processes in place. There are so many things missing. It's sort of like putting the cart before the horse, that saying. So Tiffany, you're doing it right, and it's coming, and this will only make you a better leader for your team, because you've done this first yourself. Let me know if that makes sense. Where did I want to, so one of the things I think to remember here in terms of the difference with mindset, though, is starting whether you have a team already, you're thinking about hiring a team, or you've never even thought about that first. I think it's really starting to take a look at the roles in your business and getting clear on, what are those employee tasks? What is that busy work that does need to get done, but that doesn't need to be done by me? And what are the higher level tasks that only I can do? Because this is also where you'll start to identify your zone of genius, which will just be helpful in things like marketing and sales conversations. This is sort of, for those of you who ever worked for someone else, if you've ever had that thought where you're like, what the fuck, I'm working so hard, what do they do all day? Like, they're so lucky. That thought process, that's the employee mindset, because you realize, I'm just doing all this busy work. It feels like hard work. That's what you want to start to notice in your business. What are those tasks? Because that's the stuff you want to start to delegate out and minimize, so that you can shift into that employee space, which is, what the fuck are those people doing? They're doing the higher level thinking. They're doing the work that drives the business forward, that other people can't do because they don't have the vision or the skill set. So starting to identify what those things are, and starting to see how much time is going to those different tasks is really important. So you know when you hire out, but also so you can start to see where you're falling, because if you're still really in that employee mindset, what can happen, and I see this with clients a lot, is there's so much focus on that busy work because your brain is wired that way, right? Like you've just been in a job where like that's the work you're supposed to do and you get applauded for it. And it's sort of like busy work is so much easier to measure because you can just see like the stuff that comes from it, right? You can like track it a little bit differently. It's sometimes harder to quantify the time of the CEO level work. So you want to start to see, are you putting a lot of emphasis on that busy work, on those tasks, on, I always use tinkering on the back end of your website as an example. Only, not that you would necessarily hire that out, only because that's something that I quite honestly wasted a lot of fucking time in my first year of business, thinking that that was because I was an employee mindset, right? Thinking that was the work I needed to do that was so important, which was not CEO level thinking and was really not money generating at all. But just really starting to identify and get clear with yourself. I'm a big fan of time tracking, and just time track for a week and see where your time and energy is going. It can be really helpful. Again, so you know where to delegate out, and so you can start to see, am I spending a lot of time on these tasks that aren't moving the business forward? And what would it look like to start to shift more into the CEO level thinking in my business and starting to focus more energy and time on those tasks? And if you are at the place where it makes sense to start hiring out, and I do think hiring out a little bit before you feel ready is smart, because it does take time to properly onboard team members and to train a team to do work in the way that actually supports you. I would start thinking about things like, what would I hire out? What comes up for me around this? Because what I find for a lot of my clients is there's a lot that can come up around being supported. I mean, come on, business owners, like we can feel a little like we're control freaks. So just starting to shift out of that and seeing like, what would it be like to let go of some of these tasks? What would it look like to be supported? What would it look like and how would I feel if I freed up this time? Like, am I using this busy work as an excuse to not focus on the important stuff? And just starting to see what comes up around hiring out and being supported that way. Because I find there's a lot that can come up mindset wise. And the more you start to shift that, the more you're shifting into that CEO level thinking and starting to really treat your business as if you're the CEO and not an employee, just kind of grinding it out. Let me know if that one makes sense and if you have questions on that. So the last one here, and this is kind of related to the one we just talked about, but a little bit separately, but the big difference between employee thinking and that CEO thinking is really starting to know your numbers and to focus on profit. So what I mean by this, if you think about being an employee anywhere, you don't need to know the numbers of the business. Like, you're really just focused on like, what's my paycheck? Are you going to give me a raise? Like, what is that immediate money I'm going to make? And I need a sip of water. My throat has been dry all day, y'all. I think it's because I have the AC going like crazy. So if you think about being an employee, you're really not focused on like profit or knowing what the numbers in business are. You're just like, what are you going to pay me? How much am I going to take home? What benefits do I get? Like, what's that immediate gratification? What are those immediate numbers? And when you are a business owner and a CEO, something I chat with my clients about, and something that's really important to start to shift your thinking around, is starting to get focused on knowing your numbers in your business. Meaning, and again, if you're just starting out in business, this is going to look different than when you're in business for a longer time, but even just starting to have this mentality of, what are the numbers in my business? And starting to focus on profit instead of revenue. So again, what I mean by this is, as an employee, you're just like, what am I taking home? Like, what's the paycheck? As a business owner, what I would invite you to start thinking about is, what is the profit I am going to take home? Because especially in our online space, there's so much noise about numbers and not enough talk about profit. And revenue and profit are not the same thing. And this is why knowing the numbers in your business is so important. People talk about, I just had a 100K launch, or I had $1 million launch. That's revenue. What we want to know as CEOs and as business owners, if we're focused on profit, is, what are you actually taking home? What is the profit margin? And what are you paying out that's cutting into your profit margin? these are not things you think about as an employee because you're part of what cuts into the profit margin. It doesn't affect you. But as a business owner, this is really important, and it affects so many decisions that I work with creatives and heart-centered and passion-driven people. I am all of those things. And I think these aren't like the sexy things for us to think about. We're not like, what's my profit margin? We're like, what is the passion-driven thing I can do? And we see someone talk about 100K launch. We're like, that's amazing. Let me just like do all the creative things, and how can I make a big pile of money? And I personally love talking about money, but I think the important thing to remember is there's a really big difference. And this is where starting to think like a CEO. It's like, yes, you get to do the passion-driven work. Yes, you get to do the creative work, all about that, all about doing work you love. And if you want it to be profitable, you have to also start thinking about what are the business decisions I'm making as a CEO that allow me to take home a profit margin that serves me, and focusing on profit over revenue. I think I make great money, but quite honestly, I make way less money than a lot of people in my industry. I'm in a high-level mastermind. So many people make more money than me. I don't care because my profit margin is great. I take home more money than a lot of people making $500,000 to $1 million a year, because I have always had the CEO mindset of focus on take-home profit and really making decisions in my business around, yes, what lights me up, what is my passion, and investing in team in a way that serves my profit, not choosing business model. Like I have a business model that I don't have to pay for Facebook ads. I have a amazing team, but I don't have to have a massive team. I don't have to spend on a lot of things just to bring home a number that inflates my ego. I can just focus on that profit. And that is if you hear nothing else from this live stream, this is the one I want you to hear, because again, in our online space, people throw numbers around left and right. And a lot of times they're throwing the whole number they're not throwing in their profit. And I think it can make a lot of people get into that employee mindset of just like, I just want to know, like, what's that take home number? How do I get a raise? Let me just do a bunch of quick things, throw money places because I'm not thinking about it, and not realize that what you're doing is you're cutting into your profit, and the sustainability in your business is going to be damaged as a result. And quite honestly, this is, I think, where decisions get made that also aren't in alignment with what you actually want. All right, let me read this comment because I'm on my soapbox right now. Courtney says, biggest epiphany has been looking at my numbers and celebrating even the small dollars coming in. I'm implementing a money day each Friday in my business starting this week to spend dedicated time to look at this. I love everything about that. So this right here, this is CEO level thinking, y'all. And so two things Courtney said that I love, that I think speak to really starting to look at your numbers, to know your numbers, and to look at your profit. Celebrating every dollar that comes in. So again, I think just as an employee, if you think about that, you just get used to, like, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks or how often you get paid. So it's not like such a celebration, versus as a CEO, when you have a dollar coming into your business, that is directly related to what you've been doing. And starting to celebrate every single dollar that comes in really reinforces so many things in the brain. I've talked about this before in terms of the dopamine and the addiction to success it creates, but it also really reinforces that CEO level thinking, because you really can start to see my CEO level thinking, my CEO level actions bring in these dollars. And a money date is knowing your numbers, y'all. So we're talking about knowing your numbers and knowing your profit. It's really hard to do that if you're not taking time to look at your numbers. Something I do in my business, and if y'all, because I know we have men and women here, if you all have questions about any of how I do this in my business, I'm so happy to answer anything while you're all live here. But something I do is very similar to Courtney. I have a money date. I review all my numbers in my business very frequently, and that is, taking a look at what's coming in and also taking a look at what's going out. So something I like to celebrate as well is what are those investments in my business, because I'm a big believer what we pay out always comes back to us. But taking a look at that and really being mindful as well. We were talking about the delegating more and focusing on that higher level CEO time. Something I do look at with team is really tracking those team hours and being mindful of, am I investing team hours in the place where I'm getting the best return on my investment, and being really mindful of, and not necessarily like stingy on what I'm investing those hours in, but really being mindful on where those hours are going to ensure that I'm managing them as a CEO to make sure I'm getting that return that's going to serve the profit in my business. Courtney says money day credit goes to money and mimosas. I love that so much. Money and Mimosas should be the name of your podcast. You should have a podcast and call it Money and Mimosas. That makes me very happy. Let me know, y'all, if you want to hear any specifics around the team and delegating and receiving that support, if you want to hear specifics around the money piece, if you want to hear specifics around the permission receiving, permission asking piece. But those are really the three shifts, I think. There's obviously more, but that I wanted to touch on today that I just see come up for clients at every stage of business over and over again. And when you lean into that CEO level thinking, it makes such a difference in your business, because as a CEO, if we think about identity really sets up that parameter of your mindset and the actions you're taking. When you're showing up as a CEO, you're making different decisions in your business. You're taking different actions. You're standing in your confidence and your power in such a different way. And you're really taking ownership and, again, steering that ship, versus when you're showing up as the employee and you're in busy mode and work mode. I'm not saying anyone in employee mindset isn't showing up, but it's essentially giving your power away, waiting for other people to tell you what to do. And it's sort of like hands are off the wheel. And what I want to encourage everyone here is, how do we go from this to putting hands back on the wheel so that you're really the one in control, as much as anyone can have control, but that's really steering the direction of where your business is going. Laura says, trying to be strategic and lay out my business with systems so I can be successful and not cause me burnout. So that is CEO level thinking. I love that you're sharing that. That's what we were really talking about with getting into that place of like higher level thinking. One of the things, if you're going to start delegating, is to be able to take a look at your business. And Laura, I don't know if this is helpful to hear, but something I find really helpful when you're taking a look at those systems is starting to look at what are the repetitive tasks you do, and starting to actually get clear on, how do I do this? And it sounds so basic because of course you know how you do it. But hey Danielle, nice to have you. But to just map out what is this task and what is my process for doing it. So for example, after this live stream is finished, this will get sent to my email list next week. This is now something my team does, but before I handed that off to my team, I had to create a system around it. I had to create a system and process around it. And the easiest way to do that is to just, as you do it, to start to document. Here are the things I do. This is a repetitive task I do. And I don't know if anyone's used Loom before. Loom's a really easy way. You can start to record yourself doing these things or just make notes. And that makes it really easy to start to see, here are all the repetitive things I do. I don't have to waste any time thinking about this. I can just see this all mapped out. I can really save myself some of that decision fatigue because I have this process, this system. Like, this is, we download the video, we take the intro, we write these show notes, it gets scheduled on this date at this time. So basic, but then for you, it allows you to get out of the burnout mode because there's no thinking required, there's no decision making required, and then it's really easy when you're ready to hand it off to someone else. Laura says, do you use binders or do you document using online tools? For workflow, for things like that, I use online tools. Anyone who either is on my team or one of my clients knows I'm like super basic when it comes to technology. So Loom is my best friend. Loom is, for anyone who hasn't used it, you can record your screen and your voice. I think it's a great way to either give notes to clients or something you can use to document your processes. And then Google Docs. I'm a big fan of Google Docs, so anything that needs more explanation, I put it in a Google Doc, because if you have a Google Doc, especially as you get ready to hire out to team, it's really easy to tag people and have people leave a note or a question, especially if there's an update made. So we keep it pretty simple. Binders, I love handwriting, but I find for stuff in business, especially if you want to be able to hand it off to people later, having it online, since most of us are having virtual businesses, makes it a lot easier. Danielle says, I'm definitely in the middle of this now and realizing my next level requires me to be the CEO of my team. I'm excited about the strategy and plans I've mapped out for this, knowing that this is the future of my business and getting caught up in the change process of making that shift. Yes, I love what Danielle says, because it's exactly that, right? Like, there's such a difference to like realizing and stepping into, and I love what she said. She said being the CEO. So there's being, embodying, stepping into that role of CEO. That is such a game changer. And absolutely and again, it's fine if you don't have a team yet. This conversation, you can be the CEO even if you don't have a team yet. Part of being a CEO is the CEO level thinking that we've been talking about. But absolutely here, it's also starting to be the CEO and building a team and starting to, what we were talking about with what are the things only you can do, starting to really allow your team and other people to support you and take ownership of some of those pieces. I find that is one of the, I don't want to say more challenging. I just find it's a really interesting place to be in business, because especially if you have been the one building everything yourself, doing everything yourself. That was me at the start of my business. There's something like, we get almost like prideful. It's like our ego is just like, but I can do everything. Why would I have someone else do it? And then even if we have someone else do it, it's like, we want to be like that helicopter mom watching everything and every detail. And that, y'all, that is not CEO level thinking. Because if you think about the corporations, a CEO needs some space from watching every little detail so that they can have that space and time to do the higher level thinking, to do the work only they can do to steer the ship or the boat. If you're in all the micro details, it's really hard to see the bigger picture. And again, and Danielle, because you missed this at the beginning, I think this is just important recap. You can be both the employee and the CEO in your business. That's okay. What I want to invite everyone here is just to start to know the difference, so that you're clear on which is which, and you're making space and time for that CEO level thinking, and you're allowing the CEO to run the business, even if you also have to show up as the employee. I still show up as the employee in my business a lot, and I probably always will because of my business model, and that's okay. I'm also very much the CEO of my business and very clear on what those roles are. Let me know if that makes sense. Laura says, wonderful, thank you, my pleasure. Danielle says, yes, oh my God, 100%. This is challenging me so much, and I also know it's going to help so much. It is game changing. I think in some ways, this last week we talked about releasing the pressure, and this isn't quite releasing pressure, but there is something to letting go, I think, which is part of what releasing pressure is. And letting go sounds, letting go, surrender. I think that is one of those things that it sounds so simple, and I think it is one of the most challenging things for business owners, because most of us are, let's be real, most of us are a little bit control freaks. Most of us have built whatever we've built because we've latched on a little bit, and at a certain level, the longer you hold on, the more it keeps you down instead of allowing you to float or, to go to that next level. And that letting go can be really challenging. I think it can just kick up, it's like a new edge for a lot of people. So I love that you shared that, Danielle, and I appreciate it so much, because I think it just helps normalize it for everyone. And I just want to share for everyone, like, super normal. This is an edge I am supporting clients with so much. And I think like shifting into this CEO role more and more it's just an edge, and that's okay. I think so often when we think of mindset work, we only think mindset work is about like fears and limiting beliefs. It's like, you don't need, like, it's just about like not hating yourself or not feeling like you suck or not being scared of business. And it's mindset work is absolutely that, and that is important mindset work. And sometimes the mindset work is really starting to work and refine those edges. It's like those micro 2 or 3 degrees where you are shifting into being a little bit more of a CEO, being a little bit more of a leader, letting go a little more of that employee mentality, shifting into a little bit more of your power, shifting into letting go a little bit more. And those are all edges I find are just as much mindset work. Quite honestly, I think sometimes more challenging than the other mindset work, because I don't think most of us in our society have been given tools or even had conversations around how these are things that are really important for growth. I mean, I think I grew up in a very unusual household with a dad who was an entrepreneur and a race car driver. So we had conversations around this, but I noticed from my friends, like, these are not conversations most people are having. So just to normalize, I think these are some of the biggest mindset edge growths for most entrepreneurs. All right, Courtney says, wish I could take credit for the fun name, but this gal has some great tips and resources. Oh, it's actually Money and Mimosa. I really thought it was like Money Date with Mimosas. That is actually the name of the website. I love that. Thank you for sharing the link. Don't mind the siren outside. Thank you for sharing that, Courtney. I really just love the name. And I love Money Dates and mimosas, or just champagne without the orange juice to water it down. Let's be real. Danielle says, just hearing you talk about this is permission giving, and good reminder. Thank you. So my pleasure. So happy that this feels permission giving. And to put a button on it, because Danielle, you missed it, the first thing we talked about was not seeking permission. And I think what we're talking about here is permission giving is very different than seeking permission. And I want to clarify that for any of you who are watching through the whole thing. When I'm talking about seeking permission in business, I'm really talking about, like, you have that idea you want to put out into the world, and you're crowdsourcing 15 people to see if it's okay, or where you're polling groups for if the name of your program is okay, or where you already know what you want to do, and instead of making that decision from an empowered place as a CEO, you're asking 14 friends who know nothing about your business to see if they tell you it's okay. That's what I'm talking about, seeking permission, versus feeling like something's permission giving because you're hearing it's normalizing. And I just want to clarify the difference. Courtney says, oh, I have to plan a mimosa. Heck yes, I might need to just drink champagne after this live. Danielle says, I will totally join you. Mimosa party. Tanika says hi. Maybe we need to have a champagne party in here. Maybe. Ooh, so I'm doing the free training not next week, the week after, on questioning all the rules for making money, which I'm really excited to chat about. Maybe we'll make that a champagne party as well, and I will have some champagne with y'all. If you don't drink, that is okay. If you don't want to drink champagne, if you're joining me, that's okay too. I might just drink some champagne while I'm doing this, and I will invite all of you if you also want to drink champagne with me. We can drink some champagne, because literally what we're going to be talking about is questioning all the BS rules that are taught in business and how much they keep you from having business success and from making money, and how to question those so that you can make money your way in business. And so I think drinking some freaking champagne while we're doing that is spot on. Tanika says, oh, I'm down for a champagne party. Courtney says yes. Okay, it's a done deal. We're having a champagne party. I will remember. That's not this next Tuesday, the Tuesday after, the 28th. We're having a champagne party because we decided. All right, do you all have any questions, anything before I hop off what we chatted about? I'll give a quick recap so that anyone who wants to put in a question has time or reflection, and if not, I will also, if you're watching on the replay, feel free to pop any questions in for me, whether it's about this or something else. I'm so happy. I've still got a few more minutes if anyone has a question. But as a recap, what we talked about today is really starting to take a look at the difference between an employee mindset and a CEO mindset. Again, you will be both in your business. We're not making an employee mindset wrong. We're not making being an employee wrong. However, if you have your own business, what we want to really start to identify is, what is the difference between having that employee mindset? What is the difference between having that CEO mindset? How can you start to step into that CEO thinking more and more and more, so you are the CEO running a business, so you're standing in your power, so you're showing up as a leader, because that's where your success is going to come from. That's where the money in your business is going to come from. And so that you can get to that place where you're really clear and you're doing more and more and more of the CEO level work, and you're starting to either cut out or delegate more of that employee work and thinking. And the three things we talked about, and these are not all the things, but these are just the most common ones I have conversations with clients around, is starting to, we use there's that quote, that adage, but seek forgiveness, not permission. In other words, the employee mindset is asking for permission first. The CEO mindset is doing the damn thing and then seeking forgiveness, or if they need to, but they're not looking for permission first. The second one there is really starting to get clear and carve out time for that higher level thinking, and protecting those tasks that those things that only you can do in your business, and starting to identify what is all the busy work, what are all the tasks, the details that really you don't need to do that someone else can do. At the start, you're going to do both, but you want to know the difference so that you're spending more time in those CEO roles. And when you're ready, leaning into asking for support, receiving support, and delegating in a way that actually allows you to receive that support. Not delegating and micromanaging the shit out of things, which means you're still not doing the CEO level thinking at work. And then the last one is knowing your numbers and really focusing on profit over revenue. This is the one I said, if you focus on nothing else, hear this one. Really want to invite everyone. I know, again, and I said this already, but I'm just going to say it again. You're my creatives. You're my passion-driven, heart-centered people. I am you. I feel you. I am like all about like what makes me feel good, what lights me up, like where's the creativity. And as a CEO, coming from that CEO mindset, it's so important to know your numbers and to focus on profit over revenue. Don't let the shiny glitzy stuff online suck you into revenue over profit. You don't want to flip-flop that way. I promise you, as a CEO, your business is going to thank you and you will pay yourself so much more as a result. That's how you make sustainable money doing what you love. All right, I love you all. I will see you next week. We'll have another live on Tuesday, and then the week after we will have that free training, question all the rules for making money so you can make bank your way. And we will have champagne when we're doing that. I will drop a link for that because I always send out a bonus playbook with the free trainings if you want to sign up for that. And I will see you in the Facebook group this week. Love y'all. Bye.